In this video, we are going to discuss interfaces. Let's first have a look at what PHP specification says about them. Object interfaces allow you to create code which specifies which methods a class must implement, without having to define how these methods are handled. And as you may remember, in the previous video, we've been doing exactly the same thing from within the abstract class by declaring the abstract methods. We didn't provide an implementation, we only specified that any class that extends these abstract classes must have implementations of these methods. Then interfaces are defined in the same way as a class, but with the interface keyword replacing the class keyword, and without any of the methods having the contents defined. All methods declared in an interface must be public. This is the nature of an interface. Within the abstract classes, we could specify abstract methods being either public or protected. So any subclass could declare these classes, obviously implement the guts for each of these methods in their own way, but they could use either public or protected. Whereas in interface, we can only specify public methods. Now, if you think about this, what interface actually means. In computer environment, if you have graphical user interface, it gives you tools, buttons, and all sorts of interface elements to interact with a given system. So when you click on a button, something happens. And this is exactly what interface does. That's why all these methods have to be public, so that the end user, when he interacts with the object, he has clear access to these methods, so he can use these methods publicly outside of the class. If we were to declare any methods as protected, then perhaps interface wouldn't make so much sense here. So interface keyword probably wouldn't work very well. But because interface uses all public methods, obviously this is giving us a clear indication of, okay, we're going to have this specific set of methods available to us if the given class implements this interface. And let's keep on reading. So implements. To implement an interface, the implements operator is used. All methods in the interface must be implemented within the class. Same thing as we had with the abstract methods of the parent class when we declare this class as abstract. Failure to do so will result in a fatal error. Exactly the same situation. Classes may implement more than one interface if desired by separating each interface with comma. Well, with abstract classes, when we extend them, we can only extend a single class at a time. We cannot extend multiple classes, but we can implement multiple interfaces. Okay, if we scroll down, then we have prior to PHP 5.3.9, a class could not implement two interfaces that specified a method with the same name, since it would cause ambiguity. More recent versions of PHP allow this as long as the duplicate methods have the same signature. Then we have another note. Interfaces can be extended like classes using the extend operator. However, on that note, this only applies to interfaces. So you can have one interface that extends another interface. You cannot extend interface from within a class itself, from any class that actually implements the interface. It's only for the interfaces. So we have one interface and it can extend another interface. So they basically can work this way, but not the class that actually implements the interface. Then we have another note here. The class implementing the interface must use the exact same method signatures as are defined in the interface. Not doing so will result in a fatal error again. And then constants. It's possible for interfaces to have constants. Interface constants work exactly like class constants, except they cannot be overridden by a class interface that inherits from them. So when you declare the constant within the interface, if there's any interface that extends this interface, they cannot override it. The same goes for any class that implements this interface. So this constant will only be within this specific interface, nowhere else. Constant with the same name. Okay, I think it's time to go back to our editor and have a little play with the interfaces within our code. In a previous video, we've created this simple notification component with the recipient, where recipient class was an abstract class that only specified two abstract methods. Now, if you look at this abstract class could be easily converted to an interface because we don't have any implementations of any other methods. We only are declaring the contract here. So this is a perfect example of an interface. So what we're going to do is convert this abstract class to an interface. So the first thing we need to do is to remove this abstract and class preceding the recipient name of the class and convert it to an interface. So we start typing interface, and there we go. This is now an interface. That's not a class, this is an interface. Another thing, as you can see straight away, my ID is highlighting this abstract and public. We obviously gonna have to have both of the methods public, which these two already are, but we don't need keyword abstract within the interface. Abstract keywords for the methods are only for the abstract classes. Within the interface, we only say public, function, and then the name of the method, brackets, and semicolon at the end. So this is our contract. So now how do we apply this interface to our email recipient and phone recipient? If you open our email recipient, scroll up, obviously we get it highlighted because we no longer have the abstract class that we're extending. This time we are implementing, so the keyword implement comes into play. And everything else stays exactly the same way. But now, rather than playing with the abstract class, we have a simple interface with two method contracts declared. Okay, so that's this email recipient, and then phone recipient, same thing, implements rather than extends, because we're implementing the interface. Now, if we save it, preview everything in a browser, as you can see, everything works exactly the same way. But now, rather than having an abstract class, which was kind of a waste because abstract class without any implementations of other methods, as we had, for instance, in our notification class. If you have a look at this, we have an abstract class. It's got some properties, it's got some methods which subclasses can use as well. As you can see, these are proper implementations, and we only declare one method here as abstract, so that any subclass declares this, basically provides the implementation for this method. But majority of the methods are already within this class and can be used by any subclasses. When we only deal with a contract that we want to make sure that the given class has given methods, then the best way to do it is to use the interface. Now let's try and go through the points that we've read within the documentation. First of all, I want to show you that you can actually implement multiple interfaces. So let's clear everything that we have here within this PHP course directory. I'm going to pause this video, remove all the files, and start with a fresh index.php file. Okay, so I now have this empty index.php and empty source directory. Within the source directory, I'm going to create a new class. It's going to be just a standard class called basket. And if we click on OK, there we go. So that's our basket class. This basket class will have a private property called items, and this items property will be of an array type. Let's quickly add the doc block here. This items property will store all of the items that we are actually adding to the basket. So the first method, in order for us to be able to add items, is going to be called add. So public function add. And this method will take two arguments. First one will be name of the product, and the other will be the quantity of the product. Let's quickly add the doc blocks as well. Name is going to be a string, quantity is going to be integer, and summary is going to be add new item to the basket. And it's not going to return anything, so return void. If we scroll up a little bit, and simply this items name is going to be the key, and then quantity is going to represent the value of this item in the array. So that's adding item to this items property. Then we have method that will allow us to obtain the value associated with the given name of the product within the basket, which is going to be called get. So public function get, and we need the name of the product that we want to obtain. And from here, we're going to return this items and then name. This will give us the quantity associated with the given product. So again, doc blocks, it returns integer. Param name is going to be of a string type. And then summary is going to be get quantity of the item in a basket. And then we have last method, last helper-like method will be to remove the product from the basket, public function remove. And again, we take the name of the product and we simply use unset function to unset given item on this items property, which is obviously of an array type. So name as an argument there. And there we go. So let's quickly add the dog block here as well. Name is going to be a string. It does not return anything, so return void. And then remove item from the basket. So these are just like a standard setters, getters, and so on, and one method to remove it from this array, which is our items property. Okay, now what I would like to be able to do is at any given time to return the contents of this items property in the array format. We could obviously just get the method which says all and then return just whatever this items property contains, but I want to have three different interfaces. First one will allow us to return everything as an array. Second one is going to return everything in a JSON format. If you're not familiar with the JSON format, just keep on watching, you'll see what it looks like in just a moment. And then last interface, which we're going to create, is going to allow us to return all of the items as a string separated by comma. So let's quickly have a look at how we can actually achieve this. First of all, I'm going to create the new interface. It's going to be PHP class here in PHP Storm, and I'm going to change kind from the class to interface. And the name is going to be arrayable. So it allows us to return items as array, so arrayable. You can call it whatever you want, really. Feel free. Okay, and I click on OK. This automatically creates this interface arrayable. If you don't have this option with your IDE, simply start with the PHP, opening PHP tag, then interface, name of the interface that you want to provide, then set of curly brackets. And this one, this specific one will have a public function to array. And let's add dog blocks as well. It returns array, and the summary is going to be return result as array. And that's all. This is our contract. So if we now implement this arrayable from within the basket, this basket will have to have the implementation of the two array methods. So let's do this. So from within the basket, we implement arrayable, and look at this, straight away highlighted. We obviously don't have one of the methods. It tells us class must be declared, abstract or implement method to array. So let's quickly add this method. If we scroll down, this method has been automatically added here from within a PHP Storm. So to array, what I want to do here, the property items is already of an array type, so all I have to do here is simply return this items. It would help if I could spell this. There we go. Okay, so now we have the implementation of the to array method, which is required by this arrayable contract. Now, apart from array, we also want to return all these items in a JSON format. So let's now create JSONable interface. So again, PHP class JSONable, and let's make it an interface. Exactly same case as before. Interface JSONable, and there we go. Set of brackets, and in between public, again another contract function. It's not an implementation, it's just a contract. So to JSON. And dog blocks, it will return string in this case, and return result as JSON. String, because JSON is really a string. It's just basically formatted in a specific way. So now we can close this one. We can also close this arrayable, and let's scroll right to the bottom. And this time, as you can see, I can add another. So comma JSONable. So implement arrayable and JSONable. Obviously, now I need to add this method stub as well. So add method stub, and we have this to JSON. And to JSON method will simply return JSON encode function, this items. This JSON encode function, if you check at php.net, you'll see it basically converts the array to the JSON format. So we're returning this array as JSON. So we have to JSON, and the last thing we did say, we want to return all of the items as string. So let's call it stringable. Another class, stringable, and it's an interface. And this one will have public function toString. Don't confuse this one with the magic method underscore toString, which we will discuss when we get to the magic method. But at the moment, it's just a simple straight toString method here. And obviously, this one will return a string. And what we're going to say, return result as string. Save it. And now let's implement this one as well from within the basket. So stringable, there we go. So we need to add this method. So what I'm going to do within this toString method, let's first discuss how we want this to return all these items. If we were to only return values of this items property, then we will only get quantities, we wouldn't get names of the products. And I would like to have something like this. I would like to have, let's say, product banana, colon, and then 1, then comma, say apple, colon 3 or 2, comma, and so on. So basically name of the product, colon, then quantity, separated by comma, next one, and so on. So I'd like this toString method to return all these items in this format. So first of all, I need to make sure that I combine this key with the value when we're actually separating them with a colon. And how to do it? We can use PHP's function called arrayMap, delegate it to another method, which will do this concatenation of the key and value, and then basically implode all of these items with comma. So let's start with this. Items equals array underscore map, and array map takes a callable. I'm going to delegate it to the method, which we create in just a moment. So method on this instance of the object within the same class basically, and then method is going to be called join. And what I'm passing through, it will be 2 arrays, because by default array map takes only the value from the given array. So what I need to do is first obtain the keys and then obtain the values from our items property using array underscore keys, which is going to give us names of the product, these items. And then the second one will be array values, these items. So by passing 2 of them, we will receive at each iterator, we will receive a value from this array and value from this array. In this case, obviously, because we're getting keys, this will contain array of all of the keys from within the items property. And the second array will contain all of the values from the items property. And then what we're going to do is simply return implode. We're going to implode all these items by comma. So items as a second argument. So let's create this join method. We can make it private. Let's make it private function join, and it will take name, which is going to be from this first array, and then the quantity, which is going to be taken from this second array. It's going to take the same iteration. So if we iterate for the first time, it's going to take first item from this array and first item from this array, and so on basically. If you were to add another array here, then we would have third argument, and they would go at the same iteration. Okay, so from here we return string concatenation of the name, colon, and then quantity after that. And again, you don't have to use these curly brackets. You can just put variables within the double quotes separated with a colon, but I tend to use this curly brackets when I'm using variables within a string. Okay, and then doc blocks again. Param will obviously be of the string type as before. Then quantity is going to be of an integer. There we go. It will return a string. And what we're going to put here, join name and quantity. And I think that's everything. So now let's have a look at what we have. By using these 3 different interfaces, we know that this basket, now by implementing all three, will have these three methods. This is the contract. It must have it, otherwise we're going to see an exception, an error, basically. So now what I can do is, going back to index.php, we create the new instance of this class. But before we do this, let's require all these classes. So first of all, source, we're going for the interface arrayable. Then require source, it's going to be JSONable. Then require source stringable. And lastly, require source basket. Okay, now all these class interfaces are available. We start with basket equals new basket. We don't need brackets. Then basket add, and we're gonna go for banana. We want 2 of these. Then basket add, we're gonna go for apple. Let's have 5 of these. And then we're going to have basket add, say lemon, and we're going to have 3 of these. So now what we want to do, first of all, I would like to return all of them as an array. Let's use printr function and pass basket and then 2 array methods. If we call on this basket instance, go back to our browser, refresh the page, and there we go. We have banana 2, quantity 2, apple we have 5, and lemon we have 3. Fantastic. Next thing, going back, now I would like to return all this, and I'm going to remove this. Say I want all these items in a JSON format. So basket, and we're gonna echo this, basket to JSON. Save it, preview it in a browser, and there we go. This is a JSON format. We have banana 2, apple 5, lemon 3. And lastly, I want it to be returned as string, so to string. Save it, preview it in the browser, and there we go. We have it all. We have all these items displayed, returned as string. So as you can see, now that we have implemented all these 3 interfaces, we have to provide these 3 methods. Now, you might be thinking, why do we actually need these interfaces? We could have these methods on its own without actually implementing any of this. Well, this will become more clear in the following videos. But for now, why are we actually implementing 3 of them rather than creating 1 interface? It's because some of the classes in the future may only require that you actually have option to return all of the items on a given instance of the class in the array format. Maybe they don't require JSON and string. But having these separate interfaces, you can plug them in at any time, any way you want. So basically, it allows you to declare specific requirements on the class by just implementing given interface. Same way as we had with the abstract class and abstract methods, only obviously with the interfaces, we don't provide any implementations, we only declare the contract. Now let's just have a look at this extending of the interfaces. You cannot extend interfaces, as you can see that's straight away wrong. You only implement interfaces from within a class, but interface can extend an interface. Let's quickly have a look at how this could potentially be achieved. And I'm just going to remove this JSONable from here. And I will, just for the time being, in a real life project, I wouldn't do this, but let's just to prove the point here, I'm going to open this arrayable and I'm going to use extend JSONable. So now, as you can see, everything's fine, nothing's highlighted. Now from within this arrayable, I still have to implement this to JSON. If I was to comment it, this method, have a look at what's going to happen. You can see it's automatically highlighted. Because this arrayable extends JSONable, this contract still is valid, which means I still have to implement not only to array, but also whatever this interface, this arrayable interface, is extending. So as you can see, interface can extend an interface, and when it does, the class that implements given interface needs to make sure that both of the contract are obviously in place. So we need to obviously uncomment this. And as I said, I wouldn't do it this way anyway, because it doesn't make sense, arrayable and JSONable in the same place. That's why we have separate interfaces for this. So let's just do JSONable, then comma, stringable. So that's when we read in the documentation, obviously, about extending that interfaces can extend other interfaces. Now, another thing was about the constants. Let's open JSONable and create a new constant, and let's give it a name, say display count, and let's set it to say we want to display 10 records per page or something like this. Okay, so we have this constant available within the JSONable interface. If we go back to our basket, let's quickly create a new public method, public function, display count, and simply return. We are going to use self keyword here to refer to this constant. We can't use parent because parent refers to the parent classes, and interfaces aren't really parent classes, they are only contract. So that's why we're using self keyword here for this to refer to this constant within the interface. And let's quickly add some dot block here, returns integer get display count. If we save it, go back to our index.php, I'm going to comment this last method, and let's echo basket display count. Save it, go back to our browser, refresh the page, and it gives us 10. We could also, if we go back to the editor, remove all this and access this constant directly using the class name. So echo basket, then scope resolution operator, these two colons. We will discuss this a little bit later on. And then constant straight away here, so display count. It's going to work exactly same way. So you can access constants of any class using the class name, then two colons, the scope resolution operator, and then the name of the constant. And it will work the same way. If we refresh the page, you can see we get the same result. So I think that's enough for this video, but before we move to the next one, I just wanted to explain the differences between the abstract class with the abstract methods and interfaces, because even though they share similarities, they're not quite the same thing. Now, abstract classes, as you saw, they may have some implementations. Usually they have some implementations and they act as a parent class of any subclass. Whereas interface does not. Interface only provides a contract. It tells you, you are going to have this, you are going to have this, and this. And all of the methods within the interface have to be public, because that's the nature of the interface. Whatever you have within the interface, you have to be able to access from outside of the class. Now, when it comes to the abstract classes and their abstract methods, as you may remember, these methods, these abstract method contracts, may either be public or protected. We will continue using interfaces and abstract classes throughout the rest of this course, and you will find out how these two can help you to write a better and more extendable code. In the next video, we will discuss constructor and one of the most fundamental concepts of any programming language, called dependency injection.